I feel more fit now in my 40s than I did in my 20s because I'm more focused and I have, the time and the drive, and I just have like the life experience.
Welcome to What the 40 Pod with me, Rich Rust. I couldn't be more excited to introduce my guest for this episode, Dr. Robin Moore. I met Robin at a skydiving event in Florida a few years ago and was immediately struck by her exceptional energy. Robin is an ER trauma doctor by day and an adventurer by night and by weekend. A true tour de force. She is a triathlete, a skydiver, a mountaineer, a horse rider and a pilot, and that isn't even the full list. Robin was also a Girl Scout and has made it one of her missions to inspire and motivate future generations of young girls. To top that off, she can currently be seen on USA Network's Race to Survive Alaska. Robin, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. The pleasure is all mine, honestly. I'm blown away by all the things you do and would love to hear much more about, frankly, how you just have time to manage it all.
Thank you. I'm very excited to chat with you today. This is awesome.
Cool. Very good. Well, look, as I said, I mean, it's clear your life is remarkable. You do so many things. Let's start by kind of getting into what motivates you to get up and do all of the things you do. I mean, it's such a broad range of things. First of all, how do you manage just from a time perspective? And then what inspires you to kind of choose the things that you do?
Well, I just love to take on any challenge. I love so many different hobbies, and I have so many different things that I do that I just don't have time to stop moving. I have to keep going. Just this drive to keep pushing and living every day as if it could be your last is like what just keeps pushing me forward. I work really hard as a doctor. So when I'm off from being a doctor, I want to enjoy life and adventure really hard too. So I just get up every day and try to enjoy it and find smiles in whatever it is that I'm doing.
Nice. Amazing. And how do you kind of balance? I mean, clearly balance is the wrong word to use here, but you seem to have found this way of, as you said, you obviously have a very intense, hardworking job, which is enormously demanding just in terms of what you do day to day. Being a trauma doctor is no easy thing to do by anybody's standards. And then you seem to have this incredible juxtaposition of all the other things you do. Do you find that the kind of adventure side of your life just gives you a kind of complete antidote to what you do day to day, or is it complementary in some way?
It's complementary in some ways. It also does kind of help take my mind off of some of the stressors that I deal with at work. I mean, I'm not only dealing with trauma, but I do trauma, heart attacks, strokes, pediatrics. I do a little bit of everything as an emergency medicine physician. And sometimes I see some of the worst things that you could ever imagine. And in order to kind of decompress from that, I find adventure and I find the things outside of work that make me really happy. And I see death every day at my job. And it makes me realize that you can't take any day and you live for granted, every day. So you have to just really go out there and live it. So because I see so many miserable things, it makes me want to live and be fortunate that I have life to live. So that's how I go out every day and live it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm guessing there is a kind of element of just living in the moment in some of the things you do. You can only focus on, like we both skydive. And in one of the things that always intrigued me about skydiving and one of the reasons I've kind of been doing it for 20 or so years is you can only ever be in that moment at that time. And I'm guessing that there's so many of the things that you do that seem to be so focused and so you have to kind of give it your all that I guess it's hard to think about other things in the moment sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree that about skydiving and also especially base jumping, which I also do. You have just a few seconds there where you must think and only what you're doing, you must focus. And so everything else in the world disappears, all the other troubles, all the other stressors, and you just focus in that moment with what you need to do and how do you need to respond to pull the parachute correctly and to land it correctly. So it's really exhilarating to kind of get that focus into something. It is a completely different thing than what I do in my job, every day. But I love skydiving for that reason.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so, right, how often are you base jumping? When did you last base jump?
I haven't base jumped since November. I was in Moab, but I'm actually going to Idaho next week go back to the Twin Falls Bridge and do some more base jumping. I'm going to Norway also next month on
Oh,
a big
wow.
heli boogie base jumping event there. It will be the highest base jump that I've done. So I'm used to going like 500 feet lower. This will be 3,000-foot cliff. So that'll be like new and interesting for me.
Okay, so I don't want this to become a kind of skydiving base jumping podcast, but I'm intrigued. I'm going to ask, we can take this out. So for 3,000 feet, you could technically jump a sport rig, right? I know you don't.
Yeah, I mean, technically, I guess you could. It's gonna take you a few seconds to get to terminal velocity, but yeah, I guess you could do that.
Yeah,
But
amazing.
at the same time, yeah, I'm bringing the base rig, and it's a base event, and some of the cliffs we jump will be lower, but that will be my highest point.
Norway will be exceptional at this time of year as well. It'll be amazing. It'll be
Yes,
really cool.
absolutely.
Oh, well, I would love to hear more about that. So look, I'd love to know how it started for you. So you grew up in North Carolina. Am I right in
Yeah, I grew
thinking?
up in a
Yeah.
small town on a farm, North Carolina. We were tobacco farmers. We had lots of horses. And yeah, I mean, I love that world. My family's still there on the farm. I love going back to visit, but I just wanted to see the world and to do more and to get out of that world and to explore. So from there, I just got to get great education, which I think is a foundation for so many things. I went to college, I went to medical school, and I focused so hard and sacrificed so many years of my life to become a doctor and to making that career such that then I can afford to go out and have adventures for the rest of my life now.
That makes sense. And so was medicine something you were always interested in? Was that a kind of vocation for you from a very young age, or did that come later?
I always wanted to take care of people. It just
Yeah.
was something I had in me. Even when I was very young, I was volunteering at the hospital. I even got a job as a lifeguard because it involved some first aid in there. There was just something about caring for others that was just something like in my nature. I never imagined really to be anything else other than that. So it was great that I had that drive always for that. My parents found my
Okay.
first Fisher Price doctor's kit and presented it back to me when I was in medical
Oh,
school, which I thought was adorable because I used to run around
brilliant.
playing doctor, as a child, which is so cool that I actually became the doctor that I always said I was going to be.
That's very good. And do you still have that now?
I do.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. And from an adventure perspective, because clearly you've come a long way from the small town in North Carolina in terms of the things that you do. What was your kind of spark or trigger to get into some of the specific things you do? Was there anything early on that you just kind of thought I'm desperate to do that, or did it just kind of evolve over time?
Even when I was younger, I liked doing lots of different things. I was a dancer, I was a gymnast, I was a cheerleader, I rode horses, I was a pianist. I just kind of dabbled in a little bit of everything. When I was 16, I went for the first time as an exchange student to Spain, and I got to see a different world, a world I'd never seen before. And I realized there was this whole other world out there and all these other countries and different cultures, and I wanted to experience more of that. So then as soon as I had opportunity and as soon as I had saved any money, I was out traveling again. And through travel and through meeting other people and hearing their experiences, I started finding out that there were all these other adventures that you could do. I actually did my first skydive at 18 just as a tandem, but I knew I loved it, but at the time I didn't have the money or the time to dedicate into doing that. So, but I never forgot, so when I came back to it, and 2010, when I finally finished residency and my life was now open to actually being able to have experiences, I went right back to skydiving, which is something I had done at age 18, like so many years back, but I never forgot.
Nice. And so skydiving is one of the things that obviously that's how we met, and I got to know you, and then kind of I started following you on social media and saw all these other incredible things that you do. How do you choose now? I mean, you make an interesting point around, life situations, whether it's career or economics or whatever, have an impact on when and how you can take up certain things. But how do you choose now, being in a kind of position to be able to choose what you might get involved in? How do you choose where to focus your efforts? Because I'm assuming as well that you kind of create your own momentum in the sense that you get a chance to try new things and to take part in different things. So how do you kind of filter that now to go, okay, I'm going to focus on these things?
Well, it depends on what I have coming up. And for instance, I have an Ironman triathlon that's coming up, and that's in 2 months. So right now,
Incredible.
my huge focus is on fitness. So I have to kind of put aside a little bit the skydiving. I don't go as often. I hang glide and paraglide. I don't do them as often. I just kind of keep them current. And then I change the focus. So right now, the focus is fitness, is swimming, biking, running, and that's what I'm doing. And then, after that adventure, I'll change the focus. I'm going to be climbing a mountain in September in Europe. So then I'll change the focus to, okay, now I'm doing mountaineering. And, so I just kind of change as I go. But I do so many different hobbies and so many different adventures that I'm constantly having to change what I'm doing week by week to focus on what it is I need to focus on most at that moment.
And do you kind of go at the beginning of the year or the year before? Do you go, right, next year I'm going to focus on? Do you kind of map it out, or is it a bit more organic than that in terms of how it happens?
It just kind of falls into place. I
Yeah.
just let myself feel whatever I want at the time, and like so in the next few coming months here, I'm going to be base jumping a lot, and that was just kind of by accident. But I was like, well, maybe it was really meant to be. So that's going to be part of it: base jumping a lot, mountaineering, and doing triathlons. And it just kind of fell into place that way. So I'm just rolling with it, and that's just how life's falling for me right now.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, and when I met you was I think 2019 at Boogie and Skydive Sebastian, so it was some years ago. And what struck me about that was obviously you then go into a pandemic and you've got this incredibly rich, varied life, and suddenly this kind of period of time where your life has to, particularly given what you do for a living, your life probably changed for a period of time, and I'm guessing you had to, at least for some time, pause some of the things that you did. How did you manage that and kind of stay focused in that period? Was it a period of intensity for you? Did it give you some time off? How did that play out?
So in 2020, right when COVID hit and the pandemic hit, we were pretty slow in Miami, which is where I live. So I
Mm,
volunteered to go to New York City, and I worked in a pure COVID hospital in New York City during the
wow.
height of
Okay.
their pandemic. And
Yeah.
so because I felt like that was the time for me to finally give back into my career, that was what I was there for. It's like, yeah, I'm a doctor. This is the pandemic. This is what I'm doing. So I went and just went head on into like one of the most dangerous situations. And I worked, purely at the COVID hospital for all that time in New York until it was under control there. And then I came back to work in Miami. But I just basically threw myself into work because that's where I was most needed. And I felt that that was what could help me the most and help everyone else the most. So that's how I changed my focus then. So yeah, I let go of some of the things because as we weren't traveling, we weren't doing as many adventures. So I just pushed myself into being the best doctor I could during that time.
Incredible. It sounds like you throw yourself into most things to a degree. Like you kind of go,
Yeah.
that seems to be the theme of how you approach this stuff.
I always
Um,
dive head first. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. And so Miami, I'm intrigued. So what was did you choose to move to Florida? Was it always in your plan to kind of to be, I mean, it's an incredible part of the world to live in. How did you kind of end up there? And you've obviously made that your home. So how did that come about?
So I grew up all my life in North Carolina, college North Carolina, medical school in North Carolina, and I just wanted to get out. So I went to residency in New York City. I lived there for 4 years, training to be an emergency doctor. And then after that, I just wanted to change the environment. And Miami was a city, but not quite as big as New York, but a city, vibrant. It's sunny all the time. We skydive here year round. We hang glide here year round, and we paraglide here year round. And I scuba dive. So all those things were just like right at the top of my list. So I was, this is what I'm going to do. I moved down here, and I didn't know that I would stay for sure, but I've been here now for 9 years, and I just love it. I don't see myself leaving.
And it's great for all the things you do. I get particularly for skydiving. I mean, you live in the home of skydiving. I mean, you couldn't choose a better place in the world to be in terms of the drop zones you have around. So a couple of things that I'd love to get into. First of all, you did the ice ultra earlier this year. You finished incredible finishing results. How did that come about? And how did you prepare for that experience? Because wow, it looks intense, and I just love to know what was the spark and how you got yourself into that.
So the Ice Ultra Marathon was something that was completely new to me, but I love taking on new challenges, things where I look into it and I say, can I do that? I'm not sure that I can. And it's that uncertainty that really drives me forward to prove to myself that I'm stronger than I think that I am. So I love that just extreme challenge and extreme journey. I had actually a friend who recommended that we do this race together. I said, hey, I've never done an ultra marathon. I've done some triathlons and I've done a lot of mountaineering. So I think that the cold part of the race will be fine for me. I've climbed Everest twice. I've been to Antarctica. I've come to Denali in Alaska. Like I'm really good at minus 40 degrees. So I kind of put those things together, and I went there and I said, well, you know what? I can at least try. Like I'm not sure I'll make it to the end, but I'm going to at least give it my full heart and soul. And I did better than I thought I was going to do. So I was super pleased with my performance in the end. One of the days we ran 40 miles. I've never run 40 miles straight. And I pulled that off. So I was just proud of myself for those little tiny goals. So yeah, it was a great race. We had like 30 people start, and we had about 9 that came out of the race from different reasons, frostbite injuries, a couple hospitalized. So it was a pretty brutal environment. But again, I had a lot of cold weather experience. So for me, it was just spectacular. And just to be out there in the Arctic Circle. There was like no one in front of you, no one behind you. You were completely isolated. It was just a stunning experience. It was absolutely amazing.
I can imagine. And probably moments of incredible tranquility and calmness, and then other moments of
Absolutely.
just craziness, I would think. Like you must have experienced kind of like, I mean, I was gonna use the word blizzards, but I think it's probably that doesn't do it justice.
We absolutely had blizzard-like conditions on the second day. We were going up and over a mountain pass. And then the weather went from calm to blizzard in just a heartbeat. Like it was so fast that it happened. And that's the day that a lot of people ended up out with frostbite injuries. But I mean, again, it's just you keep your head down and you keep moving forward and you keep your body warm enough and you just push through. But it was blowing like 60 mile an hour sideways. It was like minus 40, minus 50.
Wow.
And it was pretty extreme conditions. So yeah, we had that. We had beautiful days as well to contrast that. And I mean, it was everything. Yeah, it was absolutely amazing.
How do you like? What's the nutrition approach for that? Like, how does that work? Do you have stops during the every day, or how? Because surely you can't just eat while you're in those crazy temperatures. You can't kind of. Can you drink? Like, how does that play out?
So, I mean, if you have water, it does freeze pretty quickly in that temperature. I would actually only carry about 500 milliliters of water with me at any point in time, but I had it in the thermal packing so that it wouldn't freeze. But they had teepees set up every like 2 to 3 hours in your race day. So they had medics there to check on you to make sure everyone's okay, and then they could boil you water then from the snow so that you could actually have some warm water at that point in time. So that's how I was getting along. And they recommended a minimum of 1,500 calories per day. I think I took in about 1,800 calories per day. And you had to just take in things that were easy for you to eat, whether it was Snickers bars or peanut butter, or like just have some chips or some almonds, but oddly your body doesn't really want the food as much as you might think that it does. It's kind of hard to take in the calories, but you take them in because you know you need the fuel.
Yeah, I can imagine your body's like, leave me alone. I'm working hard here. Don't try and mess about with me. Yeah. So you go from the ice ultra, which is just wild, or this might be the other way around. I'm intrigued to know. You're currently being featured on or in Race to Survive. I don't know how much you can tell us about that, but I'd love to know more. What can you tell us?
So Race to Survive Alaska was one of the most incredible things I did. We actually filmed it last summer. So right now, this week is episode 7 out of 10. So it's being, it's USA Network and it's streaming on Peacock. So it's fun to like now sit back after having had the adventure and now watch, how they've chosen to portray the adventure. But it was pretty extreme. It was weeks out there in the wilderness, minimal calorie intake. I think we were eating 800 calories per day. I mean, we were pushing on race days 12 hours per day. And I had a super heavy pack. My teammate and I were carrying about 45 pounds each in our packs. So, and we were pretty small girls. I'm weighing like 120 pounds. So it was a hard push to go. And I didn't even know Alaska had rainforest conditions, but we were in Alaska, rainforest conditions part of the time. They change us in different locations for different race portions of the lake. And sometimes in the rainforest, sometimes at higher altitude, sometimes near the coast. So we just kept changing environments, and you just kind of had to adapt to whatever environment you were in. It was definitely an extreme challenge. It's so much fun. So, I mean, yeah, but the show is still ongoing right now. But I mean, we completed the filming of it, and it was absolutely amazing. The other competitors that I was out there with were some of the most amazing people I've ever met in my entire life. So it was really wonderful and an honor to compete against such like high talent.
I can imagine. And is that something you have to apply for, or do you get asked to do it? How does it come about?
Actually, a scout or casting director found me on Instagram, reached out and said, "Hey, I've been following your journey. Looks like you do a lot of wild adventure type stuff. We need some strong females. Like, do you want to come and consider competing in the show?" Absolutely. So then from there, I chose my teammate, a girl who I actually met skydiving in Egypt. So she and I went together on the show, auditioned together, and then that was it. And we just like went full on into it.
Amazing. Well, look, I have a couple of questions from that answer. So, first of all, how is jumping in Egypt? I can't remember what the boogies, was it one of the pyramid boogies or something like that?
Yeah, it was, I can't remember the name of it. It was in 2021 we did it. I can't remember which one it was. It wasn't Pharaohs, it was the other one.
Okay.
But it was an amazing adventure. I actually took my wingsuit, so I ended up like wingsuiting over the pyramids, and it was just spectacular.
Man.
And depending on how the winds were, they would set up the landing pattern, either right or left-handed landing pattern, such that we would always land right beside the pyramids.
Oh.
So that was like the most spectacular things, to come right down, right beside the pyramid, and there you are. The photos were great. I mean, the people were wonderful. Just the random tourists that were out and about in Egypt also at the time, like loved watching us come in, and it was just a great spectacle, truly. After the few days in Cairo, Cairo. We went down to Luxor. We jumped out of the Mi-17 military helicopter there over the Nile River. Had a tiny like landing zone there, and it was just really an incredible experience.
Amazing.
That was my first international boogie, so it was really great.
Look, so Robin, this is obviously the podcast is called What the 40 Pod. And one of the things that I'm interested in is as I kind of enter my 40s, I was like, actually, I'd love to speak to other people who are either in their 40s or about to turn 40 to see if, there's this kind of weird existential thing of hitting, the I was thinking this week, I was like, God, I'm kind of potentially midway through my career, ish, And I just wondered if for somebody with such passion, such adventure, such a kind of rich variety of things that you do, did kind of, or has being in your 40s change your perspective in any way at all? Do you not give it a second thought? Does it kind of make you reflect, or does it just simply make you more focused to just keep doing the things that you do?
Well, now that I'm in my 40s, the one thing that I'm excited to find out is that, like, wow, I still feel really young. And I just realized that I have so much more time left. Like I remember when I was 20 thinking at age 40, being like, oh my gosh, life is over at age 40. Like people are so old. And then I get here and I'm like, whoa, I have at least 20 to 30 more years of like wildness that is still in me, because age is really just this number. It's just all how you feel, so it's really not that number anymore. It's just, I feel more fit now in my 40s than I did in my 20s because I'm more focused and I have, the time and the drive, and I just have like the life experience. And so I think it's really great. I'm super happy with my life and I'm super happy in my 40s.
That's
one
epic.
of my most incredible feats at age 40 was I actually summited Mount Everest when I was 40. So that was like, to prove to anyone who, thinks, oh, that this is midlife and that life is over and you can't do anything incredible anymore. No, I summited Mount Everest at age 40. And even I was one of the younger ones on my team. So people were still out there living life for sure, well past 40, into their 50s, into their 60s, into their 70s.
Amazing.
So it's great to get here and say, hey, it's not even over. It's just beginning.
Yeah, that's epic. And well, look, I'd love to hear more about Everest. I mean, again, that's not something you just wake up on a Saturday morning and say, I'm going to go and do. That requires a good amount of prep and training and everything else. So how did that come about? What was your kind of decision process and deciding that you're going to go and scale Mount Everest?
Well, I'm always looking for new things to do. I've always been into fitness, though. That's always been part of my background. When I was a dancer and I was younger, I was a fitness instructor, during medical school. And then I started doing marathons and triathlons. And I'm like, all right, well, I want to travel internationally, but I want to stay fit. What can I do? And so I was like, I'll just go climb Kilimanjaro. So I'd be like, one and done, check off a box, just the bucket list thing. And I got to the summit and it was just the most exhilarating feeling. And I'm like, you know what? I loved this challenge. It was something very different. I think I'm going to look more into this. I started taking mountaineering courses, like rock climbing, ice climbing courses. And then over the next 5 years trained to then like go to the higher and higher mountains and higher altitude. And then next thing I know, I'm auditioning to be on a team to climb Everest. So it was like a magnificent experience. And yes, it did take a lot of training and a lot of dedication during these 5 years and climbing mountains all around the world to get to that point. But it was an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, it's phenomenal to have done that and to have that. And I love the fact that you're like, yeah, I climbed Kilimanjaro and I thought I'd just go and do, and now I'll go and do Everest. It's just phenomenal. And that brings me nicely. I mean, it's interesting what you say about kind of being in your 40s, and I love your energy for it and the fact that you're such a positive outlook. You're like, no, actually, this just tells me that there's so much more life to live. And interestingly, I spoke to somebody else today who said a very similar thing, and it was like, and it was basically like, actually, no, all it's done is reaffirmed how much fun there is to be had in, whether it's professionally and I think that's such a good outlook. I think if you're physically well, then life is incredible for decades. So that's great. On that point, I know that one of the things that you love to do is to kind of motivate future generations and to kind of pass on what you've learned. So I just wondered, what are the critical lessons that you like to pass on, and how does it manifest itself in terms of how you kind of go about motivating others?
So I do a lot of work with the Girl Scouts organization, and just trying to teach young girls that you can go out there and live life and do whatever you want to do. I do a lot of motivational speaking to elementary schools as well. And I always just try to give them the points that, you have to believe in yourself. You have to not give up, and you have to dream big, just dream big as you want. And, there are people always so afraid of failure, and always say, don't be afraid to fail, because if you're afraid to fail, you're not even going to try. Just go out there and be willing to fail, because failure is just a learning tool. If you go out there and like, I I didn't make the first mountain that I climbed. Like mountaineering, I was turned away at times from a summit because maybe it was too difficult and I needed to train harder. I didn't let that failure say, okay, well, I can't climb mountains anymore and get me down. You have to push past that failure. You have to learn from that failure. It's how you respond to those times that you feel like life lets you down is what tries to build you back up. So, don't take failures as like the end of the game. You never give up and you just keep pushing. And I always try to teach kids that. But what's been great about being on Race to Survive Alaska, part of my motivation at that point is not only to inspire the younger generations, is to go reach out to the people who are of my age, who think that life is over, and say, hey, look, I didn't even start doing some of these things until I was like 35, 40, or older. And so some of these things you can still go out and do. A lot of people who've had kids
so true.
End up in their 40s and now their kids are grown and gone. This is the time where you can reach out and go out and like find things and find your own passions and go out and find life. It's still out there. You've got a lot of life to live. Don't think everything's over just because you hit 40.
100%. It's funnily enough, a buddy of mine's just done his AFF this week and he's nearly 40. And I was like, this is awesome. This is like, and we did a couple of jumps this morning and I was just like, I'm just so happy to see somebody a bit, slightly older by conventional standards for getting into skydiving, and just the sheer joy on his face. It was like he was 21. It was amazing. And how do kids kind of respond to you, or kids, but also people of our generation? How do people respond to you when you kind of pass that on? Because your enthusiasm is infectious, and I'm sure that's, particularly in the Girl Scouts. Do you see them respond really positively to that?
I do. And the Girl Scout troops that I work mostly with are from small towns in North Carolina. And since I'm from a small town, I try to relate to them in that way and say, look, here are pictures of me when I was 8 years old, 10 years old, living in the small town, and I wanted these things. If you dream big and something that you really want, you can accomplish anything. There are no limitations in life. You can go out there and just reach for your goals. And just to show them that I came from the same place they came from, they really relate to that and say, okay, yeah, I can be anything too. It doesn't have to be mountaineer. It could be whatever you want to be, but, you can just choose your own path and you can go out there and take, whatever you want from life. So I try to relate to them in that way.
Yeah, amazing. And how was from a kind of, when you were sort of young age, did your parents kind of create the conditions for it, or was it just something inbuilt in you? Or were you always encouraged? How did that kind of come about?
I definitely don't think my parents encouraged me to be so wild as an adventurer.
Yeah.
They were happy that I was very outgoing and, I wanted to explore things. They were always supportive of that. Of course, once I started traveling the world, they're parents. They're going to be nervous that something's going to happen. And as I got into more dangerous adventures, skydiving, base jumping, hang gliding, paragliding, these types of things, mountaineering, they were a little nervous about that. But, they love me. They're my parents. They're like, okay, we're just going to support you in whatever you choose to do. But for sure, I had no idea at age 15 I'd be climbing Mount Everest when I was 40 years old. These things I just found in life as I went. And I was a bit older in life when I found those things, when I found that love for mountaineering. So, it's like, I just keep reaching out and say, hey, I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 years. Who knows what I'm going to be interested in? But I keep my mind open to anything. So, who knows what I'll be doing 5 years from now, but hopefully it'll be something fantastic.
I'm sure it will, Robin. There is no question in my mind that it will be. So look, that's kind of, you're on this amazing kind of path of just keeping yourself unbelievably fulfilled with these adventures. What do you do to what do you do when you get a day off? Do you get a day off? How does that, how do you choose, right, I'm just going to have some downtime? And when that happens, what do you do? What do you like to kick back with?
Well, I rarely allow myself a full day of downtime. I have to force myself occasionally to take it because for my health, we all need that. We all occasionally need a day where you just can rest, especially if I'm training really hard, I'm pushing my body really hard. Occasionally I need a day of rest. I've got a hammock on my balcony. I like to sit on a hammock, read a book. I love to read things that would give me more inspiration, either true stories of inspirational people or survival guides or something that kind of gives me more knowledge. So those are the type of things I like to read, and they just inspire me further. And then the next thing you know, I'm out having more adventures because now I'm more inspired than I was before.
Because you read something about a different opportunity and you go down that and you go, I'm gonna go down this rabbit hole and find out about that, and then that becomes a passion in itself. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I
Nice.
live on the beach, so occasionally I just, just take a jog on the beach or, go out and just swimming in the water, and it just kind of brings me back down like to my roots. I love to go back home to North Carolina to our farm. That really takes me back to my roots, and it's just a really, really calm place to be. I love to be out in the nature. I'm a huge wilderness outdoor enthusiast, so I just love to be outdoors and just
I
one
can
with the
imagine that's
nature.
pretty grounding to go back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I spent time in North Carolina a couple of summers ago. I have some family in. They live in Gastonia actually, but we went up to the mountains, and we just the whole. I mean, I just loved it. Midsummer there is hard to beat. I think anywhere, just incredible. Spent some time by the lakes, just a phenomenal place. I can see why you just kind of very restorative to get into nature and to just remind yourself of just what an amazing world we live in. I guess.
Yeah.
So, listen, I was going to ask you you've kind of answered this, but I was going to ask you where you seek inspiration from. And clearly you get it from books, but what else do you like? Do you listen to TED Talks? Do you listen to podcasts? Like, how do you, and I'm assuming you don't have much time to do those things, but how do you kind of find new sources of inspiration and things that you might like to kind of consume?
I mostly from talking to other people and some of the adventures that I go, I just meet other people, listen to their stories, find things that sound interesting or intriguing, or especially if there's something that I don't know much about, something that's new and different, challenging, something that takes me outside of my box of comfort, comfort zone, then those are the things that I'm intrigued to kind of push forward and to learn about. Yeah, so just it's more from the more I travel and the more adventures I have, the more people I meet and the more adventures that I want to have. It's kind of like a cycle.
I can imagine your network becomes quite insane when you start to kind of meet new people in all of these different areas of your life, whether it's mountaineering or skydiving or whatever it might be. There's just so many. You must just connect with incredible people all the time. Who I think there's something around sparking off those types of characters who just give you ideas to pursue different paths, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I feed off of that. It's like
Yeah.
I tell my stories, they tell their stories, we feed off each other, and it's just a mutual inspiration. It's really pretty good.
Yeah, there's nothing better than sitting with people in that kind of environment and just hearing, just kind of inspiring each other. That's one of the richest things you can do, I think. Which
Yeah.
brings me to you. I know you're a very keen pilot of many different disciplines, I would say, whether it's hang gliding or fixed wing aircraft. How's that going? And do you get time to fly a lot?
There are times where I'll fly a lot, depending on what I'm doing. Lately, I'm just flying once every 3 weeks just to stay current because now I'm back to focusing on Ironman triathlon. So I can't quite fit in everything all the time, but I just stay current with each of the things. But I love each of them so much. Whatever I'm doing in that moment, like I can't imagine being anywhere else. I flew a plane a couple of weeks ago down to Key West and back. Oh, just so beautiful. And then I
Amazing.
fly hang gliders and paragliders. I also fly like sailplane gliders, Dragonfly, which is an ultralight, sport
Okay.
aircraft.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just kind of, I try to divide my time between all that. And one way or the other, I find myself in the sky. It's one of my favorite places to be.
So, Robin, what's next for you? Like, what do you choose to do next? What's your next big adventure?
Well, I mean, I have a ton of interest from now through November, but there will be like I'm base jumping next month in Idaho and Norway. I'm going to
Amazing.
be traveling through Denmark. I'm also going to the Ironman in Spain, so that's my next big like it's a full Ironman, 140.6 miles.
Wow.
And I'm doing like a skydiving boogie in Chicago in August. And then in August, at the end of August, I'll be going down to Colombia for paragliding. I'm getting a new paraglider, so I'm excited about that. And then in September, my plan is to climb Mont Blanc and paraglide off the summit. So that'll be my
Nice.
first time hike. We call it hike and fly. So first time actually like climbing a mountain, which I'm a mountaineer already, and then actually just not even going back down and just flying right off of the top.
So will you physically be dragging the paraglider up the mountain, or
Well,
does?
yeah, but I'm getting, yeah. So the current paraglider I have, the whole thing all together, which has a reserve parachute, harness, everything, probably weighs about 35 pounds. That's a little bit too much to carry for me to the summit of Mont Blanc. You have to also bring your mountaineering gear and your ice axe and crampons and everything too. So keeping that in mind, I want a lighter kit. So I'm going to get a lighter kit. I'm going to be practicing with it in Colombia before I go to the French Alps. And then the plan is to go with this lighter gear, lighter harness, so that I can, you pack it in, put it on your back, and carry it up, and then lay it out and fly. It'll be my first time doing it, so I'm hoping this goes well. But that's kind of my new goal. It's something new and challenging for me that I have yet to do.
Well, it sounds amazing. And where do you start from for the Mont Blanc climb? Because it's obviously one of the best places in the world. I mean, I love the French Alps, but where's the kind of base for the
I
climb?
will for Mont Blanc. I'll climb from Chamonix, the main route. Yeah.
Okay, amazing, amazing. Well, that's epic. Robin, thank you so much. This is brilliant. I really appreciate your time. This has been epic.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. It was fun talking with you.